NERDSoul.
What can you do in a pandemic to kickstart a writing career? Turns out there's a whole lot you can do, but you're going to have to be really on point. You have to mind your P's and Q's, as we used to say in the old days, and just generally always have something to show. That's like TDLR, you know. But anyway, let's get started. So first things first, feel free to share this. I'm on Twitter at Brandon Easton. My Instagram is Brandon Easton Writer. You can use those hashtags. Those of you interested in television and feature writing, there are two hashtags that a lot of screenwriters hang out on, which is script chat and TV writer chat. And a lot of WGA, current and pre-WGA folks will be found there. Those are great places to ask questions and learn about what's going on in the business. So, here are our hosts. So first I would like to introduce Shaquita L. Smith, is a Salisbury, North Carolina native and alumna of North Carolina State University. She began her career in entertainment as a college representative for Def Jam Rockefeller Records. Since 2008, she has been busy writing and directing short films, writing and creating comics, and writing award-winning screenplays that typically feature badass women. In 2019, she was one of 8 screenwriters in the world selected to write a screenplay in Ron Howard and Brian Grader's Imagine Impact Screenwriting Incubator Program, which I strongly recommend. Go ahead, you. In 2016, while working in corporate sales for Coca-Cola, Smith launched a multimedia company, KURO Comics, which focuses on minority women in comics, films, and gaming, with the mission to help women and girls uncover their superpowers. In 2019, she partnered with Westfield Corporation and launched the only all-female comic convention in America, ShiroCon, making history as the first Comic-Con to ever take place inside a Westfield property, also known as the Fox Hills Mall, right? Smith was recently awarded a 2021 Digital Undivided Breakthrough Grant, which is awesome, powered by J.P. Morgan Chase and Company's Advancing Black Pathways, to develop her award-winning graphic novel series, Raven Choi, into a mobile game. She is currently repped by CAA and 3 Arts Entertainment. Please welcome Shaquita L. Smith. And as me, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, went to Ithaca College, earned my MFA in screenwriting at Boston University. After teaching U.S. history and economics in New York City public schools, I came out here to LA and broke into the TV writing scene with the Warner Brothers Animation 2011 reboot of Thundercats, followed by Transformers Rescue Bots. My original graphic novel, Shadow Law, which I had down at my booth at F03, won the 2013 Glyph Award for Best Writer. I won 5 Glyph Awards and was also nominated for an Eisner Award for the African American inspired Watson and Holmes graphic novel. I'm an alumni of the 2015 Disney ABC writing program. I wrote on season 2 of Marvel's Agent Carter, and also was commissioned to adapt the Japanese horror franchise Vampire Hunter D into a TV series. Don't ask me what happened with that. I wrote it, but it goes off into the ether. In 2019 and 2020, I was working on a ton of graphic novel series, Judge Dredd, Marvel Action Spider-Man, Transformers Galaxies, as well as the Netflix TV series Transformers War for Cybertron Siege. We recently completed the Star Trek Year 5 graphic novel series from IDW Publishing, and right now I am working at Blizzard on the new Overwatch game. I do some educational volunteer work at NASA. I'm a solar system ambassador. I try to take astronomy education into underserved communities. And just recently, I finished Mr. Miracle, A Source of Freedom for DC Comics, rebooting Mr. Miracle as an African-American character. And my first Batman book came out 2 weeks ago. So things are going pretty well. So the real point of all of this is to talk about what you can do with what you have in the current marketplace, media marketplace and media landscape. And there's a great quote here from a woman named Jana Messerschmidt, who is a part of a major venture capitalist firm. She said, venture capital firm, excuse me, in terms of the future of storytelling and branding, we will see a proliferation of products that enable content creators, you folks, to build businesses outside of traditional media companies. You will be able to leverage your existing brand, following, and social media engagement to become entrepreneurs, building revenue streams across multiple different products, meaning that you no longer have to wait for permission from a production company or studio to create. Within the last 10 years, there have been movies made and distributed on iPhones through iTunes. A couple of years ago, there was I believe a transgender drama called Tangerine that was entirely shot on an iPhone. And the new iPhone, which I'm not a fan of Apple products, I'm not a shill, I'm an Android guy, but the new iPhone has a really incredible lens, specifically in camera, that will work very well for a drama or even like special effects. So if you're serious about that kind of thing, think about what you can do yourself rather than having to ask somebody else. To continue, there are a plethora of new tools for creators. For writers, you have Substack and Medium, personalized video shout-outs from creators, Cameo, which is hilarious, new audio platforms like Locker Room, Clubhouse, and Clubhouse recently moved just from Apple only over to the Android platform. So you can do what you need to do and reach people you need to reach in ways that previously were unimaginable. When I was, back in the 1900s when I was young, it would be impossible for me to reach people in Austria or Australia or South America. But now, right now, in this room, you can jump online and talk to somebody on the other side of the planet and engage them with whatever it is you created. So just keep that in mind. So before we get too much into this, I just wanted to say that we're here to answer your questions. We're here to hopefully inspire you, but do not feel afraid to ask very specific questions or serious questions about what you can do. And the first thing I was going to say is, I'm going to throw it over to Shaquita, that what is it that you think people can do in the current marketplace? Like if you were a writer just starting out, how would you approach it, Cynthia?
Oh, wow, the writers starting out now, there's so many more opportunities than we had before. I would just say start creating content. I mean, like what she says, what the quote says is absolutely true. The world is wide open now. Social media has pretty much turned what was an entire planet into just like high school. We're all together now. So it's like, I'm talking to people in the UK, I'm talking to people in Korea, I'm talking to people in Indonesia almost every week now about projects that I'm working on. I work with people from all over the world. So it's no excuse now to not do anything. I mean, you can find artists that are in your price range in different countries if you can't afford American artists. You can work with people from all over the world. Just content right now. It's going to be a big content boom. It's about to become a selling market. It's going to be able to sell your stuff to the studios and all these other platforms that are popping up. It's a really hot market. Right now, I believe the hottest thing that's going on is Korea.
Right.
So, like on Tuesday, I'm about to pitch a movie, a Korean movie, a K-pop movie. But after Squid Game, it's just kind of like the market is like going crazy now for Korean content. I'm lucky because my regulatory series is Black and Korean, so I'm in like the middle of the firestorm a little bit. But yeah, it's a worldwide market now. You can create things, and Netflix is always looking for international type of appeal stuff. So that's my forte, is international, kind of bringing everything together and bridging the gap. So I would say start shooting now, start creating, start writing now. And start getting your followers on Instagram, right. Building your own consumer base. Like I used to work for Coca-Cola for 6 years, and that's what they're known for, the best marketers in the world. They have a very big fan base of people who grew up on Coca-Cola. So you can build your own fan base on Instagram or Facebook or whatever platform you use, and then you're able to utilize those people to come and buy your product. You don't have to use any other company for that or any other studio for that. That's directly to your consumer. So the world has changed.
And generally speaking, how many people here want to write TV or film? By show of hands. How many people want to do comics? What about prose literature? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. Prose literature, in a lot of ways, is the place to go, because if you take a look at this chart, and this is the reason I asked this, you have what's known as a content race, and NBC Universal is owned by Comcast, right? But look at how much they spent compared. Now Fox is now part of the Disney Corporation. This is a couple of years ago, but a couple of years back, NBC Universal spent $10 billion on content. Do you know how many movies that turned to be bombs were from that? How many shows got canceled after a couple of episodes? How many songs nobody listened to after the first time? How many books just sat on shelves collecting dust, in Barnes & Noble and other retailers? But the point is, they're willing to spend that much just for a hit. And that's the trick. And they're going to people like you, me, everybody in here to get that content. Because at the end of the day, that's what all really counts. And I'm going to show you another slide, which is a very rarely seen slide if you're not in the business. But this slide is what I call what Hollywood looks like from the inside. And if you take a look, content creation is at the bottom of the chart. It does not mean it's not important, but there is an infrastructure in place, which $1 trillion, literally $1 trillion infrastructure in place just to get this stuff to you. But these are the methods, and this is how they on the inside look at it. It's not about Marvel movies, it's not about Supernatural, it's not about CW superhero shows. All that stuff is just window dressing. They just want your eyeballs so they can sell commercial time. That is the very nature, or a streaming subscription. That is the very nature of the business. So believe it or not, it really is a seller's market no matter what they tell you. They will try to make you feel like you're insignificant and you gotta beg for attention. But what the truth is, if you can get some kind of viral thing going, whether it be a video, whether it be a book, an image, NFTs now, non-fungible tokens, all this stuff is leading to basically that bottom rung, content creation. You are extremely important. We are extremely important. The very fact that this thing exists in this big giant hall, these two giant halls, is because it's all content, right? If Buffy and Angel didn't exist, the chances of a lot of this stuff happening would be non-existent. I'm not a Joss Whedon fan, I'm just saying that the Buffy and Angel phenomenon kind of kicked off what we know as modern fandom, right? So just look at this. This is the most important thing. What Hollywood really looks like from the inside. There's not a celebrity mention on here. TMZ does not exist according to this. What matters is the product. And if you have a product, that's what's going to get you from here to there. Now, I'll give you a great example. The Witcher. Okay? Now, some people are gamers, some people only know The Witcher from Henry Cavill's role on Netflix or whatever. But it originally started as a series of short stories in a shared universe, right? And in a lot of ways, even Game of Thrones is like, it has an epistolary nature. It's not letters, but it's a bunch of like incidents that happen in this shared universe. The novels, not so much the TV show, right? And what I've always said, and even though publishers have yelled at me, telling me not to give this advice, create your own universe. You don't need to have like a whole novel. Not writing a first novel can be a headache, and you can learn what not to do. But in terms of selling it as a product, short stories are a good way to hone your voice. And that's why I'm saying, writing a great script, perfect. You need to do that. Having your spec scripts, all original material. But if you want to have legs, so to speak, prose is the way to go. Because if you take a look at, and I'm going to show you some places where you can get this information, if you look at all the news coming out of development and purchasing and things of that nature, it's all books being bought. Graphic novels to a lesser extent, but prose novels are hot as hell right now in the business. If you're not hearing about it, I'm telling you now. Okay? So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the future, that not everybody's a prose writer, but it is important to have a universe of your own that's branded to you, that is a kind of a reflection of you. A lot of ways, Shaquita started her own convention. And feel free to talk about that.
And I have a universe. So my universe is Shiro Comics, the Shiro universe. So my first book was Raven Toy. From Raven Toy, there are different arms that come out of that. So there's young Grandmaster Choi showing her as a kid growing up in Korea, a martial artist. She's a Taekwondo Grandmaster. There's Kyoko Pop about her best friend who's a K-pop star. There's another book that's coming. Where am I blanking on this? This is my own universe. But you get what I'm saying. It's a universe that I'm creating within my own thing, to where you would see movies or TV shows that would have spin-offs, but I'm creating my own spin-offs. So, and I'm talking in the gaming world right now, where I'm talking about building a Roblox game for, we're building a Roblox game around my comic convention, ShiroCon. And then we're also building a mobile game for my Raging Toy character. But then the gamers look at me, the gaming companies, the studios look at me like, oh wow, what else do you have? Because everything is about building a world, everything is about having a universe, and you can go straight to the gaming corporations rather than going to Hollywood. Hollywood's probably going to give you a bad deal. But you have a little bit more control if you have something that's successful, something that's already well built, some IP that's already there. That's, in 2014, that's when I kind of got an epiphany where it was just like, I saw what Marvel was doing, where it was going. Like, if I can build my own world, you hold the keys. So that's been working out for me really well, especially as recently, in the past year or so. By having so much IP now that I'm in the gaming side of things, they're looking at me like, okay, what are we going to build, and all the merchandise that we can get from this. So it's like, build your own world. When you write short stories, you don't have to write a whole big book. If you have a really great short story, that's great. If you create a video that's a little small video or something, like I'm working on a 10-minute short film that we're shooting next month. It's going to go viral, and that'll bring attention to you. One of my friends is a prose writer. She has a book. Let me take one of my masks off so I can actually talk to her. One of my friends is a prose writer, and she's at publishers talking about her book. And what they're telling her, they're asking her questions like, do you have anything that went viral? Is it a tweet or something that you have that went viral? That's what they're asking at a publishing company. They're not asking if her book is good. They're asking if she had anything that went viral. So this is like, that's all they care about, is you building an audience on your own and building your own consumer base, so they can come in and get money from that. Come in and utilize you to make money, but you can utilize yourself. So that's what, he's absolutely right. Creating your own universe is the way to go right now. It doesn't have to be like me, where I have all these books that I forget about. You can create something to where you have something to show you have a product. You have something that you can build merchandise around. Like my books, I create t-shirts around my books that I sell at comic conventions. So where some creators just have books there, I have a whole plethora of things, of items that you can buy from me. And that goes a long way when you come to these conventions. We're talking about how much money you spend to be at a convention. You try to break even or whatever. But,
you try to break even?
Yes, and it doesn't happen a lot of times. But yeah, definitely be looking out on short stories, creating content where books are either with short films or whatever you can do to show like a proof of concept of what you have to be able to go into these places.
Absolutely. And with that being said, if you want to go the traditional route, the old-fashioned route, I put up a couple of things that you can use as resources. So the first thing is the UTA job list, and this basically lists every single assistant, executive assistant, all the way up to like agent job in the business. There's a trick I learned about it. I forget which night of the week it's updated, but this is the trick. Whatever night it's updated, you need to be on that website at 11:59 and 59 seconds and then refresh, because all the new jobs pop up. And trust me, there are lots of other people doing that. Get your resume in early if this is the route you want to go, work at an agency or production company, because they're going to get inundated with resumes. They only look at the first 10 or 20. I mean, unless they were abysmal, they might look at a little bit more. But you know, by the next morning, they got 200 resumes in. So keep in mind that you want to be the first. 11:59, the night before it goes up. There are a ton of industry writing programs: HBO, Warner Brothers, Disney, which I did, NBC's Writers on the Verge. There's a CBS, I forgot what it's called, the CBS one. There's a Nickelodeon one. So there's all these different routes.
Imagine Impact.
Which one?
Imagine Impact.
Oh, Imagine Impact, yeah, exactly. There's all these ways you can get exposure to people who want to take you seriously. Because once you get to a certain point, once you're in the house, so to speak, they will listen to you a little bit more because you've already gone through their vetting process. Doesn't make it any better or worse, but they have their own vetting process, and they want to make sure that you adhere to those guidelines. But that's also a way in. There's a graphic novel submission list for those who have like either partially or fully completed graphic novels. Definitely check that out, because every single publisher is listed on there. Now, all of them accept any submissions at all, but the ones that do, submit if you follow their guidelines. Make sure you've got what it takes. So I just wanted to make sure you had these resources just to kind of give you a bigger and more broader perspective of what the business is like and how you operate within it. So with that being said, are there any questions so far?
Well, I would add one more before you.
Oh, please go ahead.
I would add one more to this. I check every day. It's called Done Deal Pro.
Yeah.
That's where you can see what's selling every day. You can see what pros books, because mostly it's books right now. Like there's screenplays that sell as well, but you can see what books are selling, and that's the best thing that you can do is kind of see if your idea is close to somebody else's idea, or just see who's buying what, who's buying comedies this week or whatever, so you know where to go.
Exactly. And so if you now, and there's another thing. If you have not gone to film school or did not study literature or art or anything like that, there are many resources out there that you can use to kind of basically substitute for a master's degree program or even a bachelor's degree program in arts and creative arts. These 3 books, I don't know if there's a 4th edition of Writing the TV Drama Series, but those interested in television writing, particularly the 1-hour drama, absolutely you need to own that book, because it not only tells you what the structures are like and what people are looking for, but also not what people look for, like how to get yourself out there, but also gives you like a broader perspective on what the business practices are for screenwriters, particularly unhired talent, and unpublished talent for that matter. Stephen King's book on writing, to me, in my opinion, is probably the greatest book about creative writing ever written. No pun intended. I mean, Stephen King, if you can, get the audio version, because Stephen King reads it. And it is not scary, well, it is a scary part, but the first half of it is his autobiography. And in it, he talks about, and this is how to use your own life, when we talk about branding. If you notice his 80s books, 1980s books, back in the early 1900s, his 80s books were all about gaining something but having to give something up. You can talk about the Tommyknockers, Needful Things, even, The Stand. It's always about losing something to gain some kind of redemption, right? In that book, he talks about, that's his cocaine and alcohol abuse talking. And he said, Needful Things was like, he could sniff coke, write 10,000 pages, but then you're a cokehead now. Right? He talks about the death of his mother and how that influenced a lot of his early storytelling. He talks about how when he wrote Carrie, his wife rescued the manuscript from a trash can and told him, you need to finish this. I'll work as a teacher, or whatever, I forget, the teacher was teaching, and you stay home and you make this the best book. And the rest is history, as they say. The second half of the book is a creative writing course taught by Stephen F. King. And he has 2 writing prompts in there that will help you sharpen your skill. And it is, when he reads that part, it's about a woman going to a log cabin hiding from her estranged ex-husband who may or may not have escaped from prison. And the entire time, as he's reading this, he's constructing this narrative, he's wondering why, she's wondering why she feels off. Something doesn't feel right about the log cabin at all. And then she realizes it a moment too late. Her husband's aftershave, the famous whiff of it, is in the air. And then he says, what do you do next? That's the writing. I remembered it because I was like, I don't know where to go with this shit, But, and the third book here is really difficult to find. You may be able to find it on eBay or on Amazon for hopefully a reasonable price. This was written in the late 1990s, and these names are the names that were popular because of Wizard Magazine, basically. Those of us remember Wizard Magazine. But Kurt Busiek, Peter David, Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis, Neil Gaiman, Todd McFarlane, Frank Miller, Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, and many others. This book is filled with them talking about how to write comic books. And anybody in here wants to do comics, you need to own that book. You must own that book under any circumstance. Talking about industry research, Variety, Deadline Hollywood, and the Hollywood Reporter they have a little bit of fluff in them, but when you really get into it, each of them have an industry section, and it's only talking about hard numbers and figures and facts. Things you need to know how to navigate the business and what's really going on behind the scenes beyond what the nonsense you see on these gossip shows, like Entertainment Tonight. That's not the industry. That's the public relations wing of the industry, okay? And that's what you need to understand. Celebrity nonsense is just a distraction. Celebrity nonsense is just a distraction. I'll say it a third time. Celebrity nonsense is just, it has nothing to do with what the business is actually like. Please understand that, okay? Now, questions, please. The more specific, the better. Yes, sir.
So
You gotta speak up, please. I can't hear
you
you.
mentioned something earlier about I guess just the market right now. But I guess when you look and compare it back to the 90s, it's a lot different. Obviously, back then they had more mid-level range movies like Streetwear. And now you really hit them down. You said, really, if you're spending all that money, you're going right ahead. So, I mean, would you say as far as that goes as a writer? Because I know for me personally, the script that I really got attention for was a script that was basically a Streetwear. It seems those are the ones that obviously get the most attention. We can say here. So, what do you think about like their Hollywood? Does it seem to be from a lot of people's point of view, like into originality?
That's a good question. It is, but it isn't. Because if you notice, there are new things like Donald Glover did Atlanta, Issa Rae did Insecure. I mean, there's constantly new, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was originally a really poorly designed film about somebody. I mean, the original It's Always Sunny was about a guy trying to break his cancer diagnosis to his friend, and the friend didn't care, you know. But that got turned into It's Always Sunny. But if you notice, all of those things I mentioned, with the exception of Donald Glover, who had a career as a writer on 30 Rock and other stuff, Issa Rae did Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl. She financed it herself. Nobody gave her permission. And in the second season, she raised money on Kickstarter, right? And originality does sell. That's the whole point. That's the other thing. But it has to be in certain spaces. Insecure would not work as a feature film. Atlanta does not work as a feature film. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And there's many other shows. But they hit a very specific market. And the one thing I've learned in this business, in life, the more specific you are, the more universal it is. And it sounds counterintuitive, but if you tell a very specific story about your experience, guess what? You're a human being. And I don't give a crap where you're from, who you love, what your skin color, how much money you got. At the end of the day, we all generally want the same things, generally, right? So if you tell a very specific story about love, who doesn't want that? Like seriously, like in the gen, I'm not talking about lunatics, but I mean in the real world, that's what people want to be loved and cared for. So all these things, it all hits on a very common experience. So yeah, the mid-range film, mid-budget range film, you know, they still make these, excuse my language, I always call them like the rich white people having a problem movie. You know, it's always that, so like The Descendants, like the George Clooney movie in Hawaii. They still make those and nobody goes to see them, but they keep making them. And they keep making them because there is somewhere in the grand scheme of bookkeeping, they somehow make their money back in the long term.
Is that because of the Academy Awards though?
Also like through streaming. Rentals used to be, like for example, movies like RoboCop and Starship Troopers, both by Paul Verhoeven.
I just bought RoboCop actually. I would say though, I would say that they don't, because I'm in the middle of all of this right now with writing screenplays and sending them out. Like one of my scripts just went out last week to Hollywood. They don't know that they want something original until they see it. You have to tell them. This is not a business where there are people who have vision or think they're corporate. So you have to go in there with something that makes sense or something that stands out.
And they don't like to read.
Yeah, they don't like to read. So your log line, your title, everything has to stand out so they can be like, oh, what's that about? Because their reader will read it. When they tell them it's good, then that must be good. Or the manager or agent calls them and says it's good, oh, it must be good. So the same things that I was writing before the Ron Howard program, I was writing after the Ron Howard program. But all of a sudden, because I went to that program, it became better. Or I'm still the same Shaquita, I'm still the same writer, I've been doing it for 20 years, but because someone else thought it was great, then everybody thinks it's great. So it's kind of like there's followers in Hollywood, they kind of follow other companies. So that's why you'll see like sometimes when something sells, it'll be a bidding war. And half the people didn't read the script, but they're fighting over it because the log line and it's a hot project in Hollywood right now. So it's a very convoluted business. It's really weird. Like I say, like even though I have agents and all this other stuff, I'm still going to shoot a short movie like next month or whatever. I'm going to release for Valentine's Day, an anti-Valentine's Day movie with the whole purpose is to go viral because that makes it easier for me. It's like I'm writing a movie. Like the last script that I wrote earlier this year, the first person that read it was J.J. Abrams, and from there it went to Steven Spielberg's company. So it was just like, but it still hasn't sold. But if J.J. had said something like, "Oh, I'm going to buy this," and everybody would have came to the table. So it's very high schoolish. It's very bougie. I don't even know if I can explain it how it is in Hollywood and why it's like that. But I will say it's going to have to change because all these places are looking for content, and you're not going to be able to get that from your sister's cousin's brother. And do nepotism or whatever. You got to go in and find
Yale buddies.
Or Yale buddies or whatever, because they don't have that kind of talent, most of them don't, and they don't have that kind of content to be able to push it out like that. So they're going to have to come looking for us in this room to come find content because it's just too much. There's too many streamers, there's too many social media platforms that are going to be pushing out movies from YouTube and everywhere else. There's too much competition for them to continue the way they've been going, but they're still trying to continue to go the way they've been going, and it's going to fail. I'm just waiting for it to fall.
Disney announced that they're spending, I got the amount that they're spending, but they're spending way more than that next year on Hulu and Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Any other questions, please? Yes, in the back, and then you. Yes, sir.
I think this is a pretty common question, but like, I understand that.
If you speak up, I can't hear you.
Sorry. I was just wondering, so making your content and putting it out yourself, I understand, right? You're shooting your own script on the road. But let's say you just write your script and you don't have those connections. How do you even get it in kind of the right light? I mean, I know it's a very generic question.
No, that's a good one. Go ahead.
That's a good question. I did that. So I wrote a script several years ago called Gestapo versus Granny about an old lady that keeps getting kicked out of retirement homes. And she's a crazy old lady. And so I wrote that script and it would maybe give me meetings and people were reading it and be like, oh yeah. So I went and shot a proof of concept video for it. I shot a trailer. It was maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes or something. And so I put it out there. I was going to do a Kickstarter. I failed. My Kickstarter failed like horribly, which was terrible. But then a few months later, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon saw it for Project Greenlight, and then I was a semi-finalist in that program. So it's like, you don't have to shoot the whole movie. You can't afford to shoot the whole movie. But you can shoot a good part of it and make it funny and make it to what you're trying to put out there. Just capture that into that short clip that you have. It can get you attention.
Finish your thought.
That can get you attention. So that's kind of what I'm doing next month with the script the movie that I'm going to shoot. It's a hip hop movie, and the idea is to make it into a feature film. But I want to make it go viral first. So like I've been talking about, the publisher's like, oh, it has gone viral. I want to make it go viral before I sell the movie, so I can go in there with a little bit more clout. So now it's like, oh, we want this movie. Okay, well, yesterday's price isn't today's price. So you're able to walk in there with a little bit more clout, even if you don't have an agent or whatever. If you create something that sells on the internet to the consumers first, they have to respect you when you come in the room as the creator to write the rest of it.
And then there's the good old-fashioned hustle. You know, I'll tell you how I got into the Disney ABC writing program. All right, I'm gonna reveal something here. They have meetings and parties before the pandemic. There's always these secret parties around town that you have to be invited to, right? If you can find a way to get into one of them, which I did, a friend of a friend of a friend said, you know, they're having this.
Wait a minute, Brandon, what secret parties? Because I heard about some parties and I don't know if those parties you're trying to go to.
I ain't talking about those.
Okay.
No. We're not talking about overlooking Hollywood Boulevard party.
Okay.
No. This is what I mean. ABC, the Disney ABC writing program would have these mixers where they would kind of informally screen out people they thought would be insane. They don't want you on the lot if they think you're going to be a problem. So, not everyone knows about these. You have to kind of be in an in club of an in club or hustle your way in. I walked in. I was not invited. I just went because I knew they were at this place on Cowanga, right, in Studio City, and I was just like, I went to the door and they were like, "You on the list?" And I made up I said, "Beth." I think I was invited by Beth. There's always a Beth. I'm not kidding. There's always a Beth. And I said, "Beth from corporate," and they were like, "Oh, okay, come on in." And I was like, "What the fuck that?" And I got to meet the people who make the decisions. So I'm just being like, I'm having a little bit of fun with it. But to really answer your question, sometimes you have to think outside the box. There's so many people who have gotten in only because of nepotism and all these other nefarious ways, but you could also just write a really, really good script, the trick is you have to get close to the people who, and I was saying this to her, much earlier, that you need to get close to people who are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Now here's the real trick. In my opinion, the real currency in this town is the benefit of the doubt. Meaning that, let's say, she comes up for something, I come up for something. This thing could cost like $250 million in theory. And they're like, well, this person did this, but she has all this, so I'm gonna, just take a chance on it. That's the benefit of the doubt. Most people don't get that, right? So you have to figure out a way to get to know people, and that's why I was putting up those resources, because there's names. You have to look at who's being promoted here and there, and of course, it really, really helps if you have a job as an assistant somewhere. I mean, realistically, that is one of the biggest keys in the goddamn universe as far as this town is concerned, is if you're an assistant and you're not a screw up and you don't piss anybody off or hurt anybody or get in trouble with HR, then people you work with will move up, right? And then you can say, yo, what's up? Hey, you're over at Gail Ann Hurd's company, Valhalla, right? Hey, we're looking for like a space adventure. Oh, I have a space adventure. It may not mean anything, right? But the fact that they know that you can write what they're looking for could lead to something down the line. It's just a matter of putting yourself in the right place at the right time. A convention is a great place to do it. Not necessarily this one, but WonderCon has a lot of showrunners there and executives. San Diego is a kind of a playground for the elite, in my opinion, in terms of like those after. I don't get invited to those after parties. My friends are like, "Oh, I was at the NBC party." I'm like, how did you get it? But the trick is, it's about access and proximity. People need to get to know who you are, and I'm telling you the truth. A lot of it is just making sure you're not a lunatic.
Yeah.
Because there's some folks in this town, as we've seen, they get a little bit of power, and then all hell breaks loose. So really, write the best script you can write. There's a NICHOL Fellowship, NICHOLL. That's the Academy Award Fellowship for Screenwriters. A lot of careers got built out of that. If you got a lot of money to throw away, the Blacklist is a good one, because you have to basically pay for your script to be constantly read. I don't like that business model, but for the people who created it, that's a fantastic business model. Oh, the more you pay, so like when you play Candy Crush, oh my God, I can't believe this. Well, if you $5.99 to get you more diamonds, okay, goddamn it. The Blacklist is like that. The Blacklist is literally how mobile games work to keep sucking money away.
Yeah.
So
in-app purchases.
In-app purchases of Hollywood. That's the Blacklist, right? That's a genius move. But so bottom line, if you are a writer and you're just starting out from scratch, again, we put up some resources. Find out where things are happening.
Yeah.
There are always parties. There are always networking events. Okay. You had your hand up?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to add something before you ask that.
Yeah.
Also, LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
LinkedIn has been amazing to me. Like I added this lady that was a VP at this gaming company, and I didn't even write her. She wrote me a message. It was like, "Hey, do I know you?" And I was like, "You do now." And it went back and forth like that. And so we were on the Zoom the next day, and she's introduced me to probably everybody in gaming she's on the board of Atari. And so she's introduced me to all these people from all over the world in the gaming world. And so that's what things have been moving for me because of her. So like the assistants that you find on there, the agents, the managers or whatever, you can find them on LinkedIn, send them a nice message. You don't have to ask for anything right now. Just kind of send them a nice message, say hello, and then in the future, kind of keep up with their career and just kind of like, well, that's great, congratulations or whatever, build that relationship. And always be nice to the assistants. When I call them, and I get someone's assistant, I'm like, what's your name? Because they don't get that.
Nope.
And so, what's your name? They're like, huh? I'm like, what's your name? Oh, this is Oscar. Hi, Oscar. How are you doing today? And they're just like so surprised that anyone talks to them like a person. And those people go up, and they're going to be an agent next. And you have that relationship, and you're like, okay, Oscar. Hey, Oscar. I'm trying to sell my script. Oh, send it over. You have that relationship. It's no longer unsolicited. He's asking you for it. So definitely LinkedIn and social media, like I say, it makes everything smaller. So you're able to have relationships online and then meet up for drinks or whatever after COVID calms down some.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm a screenwriter and I currently do TV and features. And so I have content, scripts, and produced content. And if I want to go the traditional route looking for like a manager or agent, I've used like LinkedIn or IMDb Pro and Variety Insight. when is it, and I see like, some of the bigger agencies there, like, 3 Arts and CAA, Fairshot stuff. When is it like, okay, if it is, to email them and maybe, I don't know, kind of like lie a bit, like, like, oh yeah, we said the stories, oh yeah, we met before, it's the best, so when it's too far, I guess, if it's okay to go that route, email them.
I was always on there emailing them and trying to talk to them. They have to come after you, the big ones. The smaller ones you can get into, you can get a relationship, you can have them read you or whatever. But the bigger ones like 3 Arts, they had to come after me. CAA came after me after the Imagine Impact program. I didn't even know how. I don't even know how they even knew who I was. Like, I think they saw me at the event. So I had an email from her saying, I read your script. And I was like, I just turned my script in 5 minutes ago. How the hell did you read it? And so that's what happens when you get to that level where they come after you. But the smaller agencies, and there's a lot of managers now because of what happened with the WGA and them. So a lot of them become managers and just pay attention to the trades he was telling me about. Like, you can see what they're doing. You're like, hey, I saw you, got promoted. I'm looking for a manager. I'm in the market for a manager or whatever. Just make sure your stuff is together. Make sure you've had it read by other people. Make sure it pops. Make sure it's something that's original and something that's going to get their attention. I'll tell you what, and Imagine Impact, the program that I got into, the reason why we got into that program, or what Ron Howard and Brian Grazer were looking for, was personal stories. They wanted something that you were writing from your heart. That was what it was. So it was like I was writing a script about a girl who takes a DNA test and finds out she has she came from an African tribe that has a diamond mine. I had taken a DNA test and I was wondering what the hell was going to come back from it. And so in my what if phase, what if I'm Ken the Shaka Zulu? And that's where the story came from. And so when I wanted to pitch it to them, they were just like, oh, that's so personal. That's like your story, even though I'm not Ken the Shaka Zulu, but it was a what if moment. It was a real DNA test and a real moment that I had. So that's what they're looking for, is personal stories that are about you, that you tell, because only you can tell that story. No one else can tell that story. So I would say look at the smaller agencies and the smaller management companies and get in with those. One of my mentors told me a few weeks ago, like, it doesn't matter how big or small your agent or manager is, it's just do they work for you.
Right.
That's what you want. You want someone that's going to go out and kick butt and be your cheerleader. It doesn't matter if it's have CA behind it, even though CA is not stuff like that. They're very nice.
Yeah, I would also, there's usually networking events before COVID, and see now a lot of these events are now online. One of my favorites, and this is how actually I'll tell you some stories real fast, the time we have left, a little bit. I got a lot of my career started by going to these Friday night mixers, and I don't think she lives in the States anymore, but there's a great script. What do you call those people?
Coordinators?
No. No, what do you call? No. The script. She's a script doctor. Sorry, whatever.
Okay.
She used to work with Aaron Spelling back in the day. Her name was Jen Grishanti. Yeah, she used to do this, and all kinds of people would show up to that because everyone loves Jen. She used to be the the writing supervisor at the NBC Writers on the Verge program. So she's read so many scripts, but you didn't go there to try to solicit anything from her because you had to pay for her services. But if she liked you, she would say, hey, this is my friend blah, blah, blah. And this person just happens to be a Rothman Brecker or APA or UTA or WME. Like, you never know, because people do go out, before the pandemic. So since this is about what you do during COVID, there are all kinds of virtual networking sessions. And a good place to start is a Scriptwriters Network. It doesn't cost anything. That's the beautiful part. But it's tougher to do Zoom. It looks like the Brady Bunch picture. You just like all these people. You're like, But that is a good way to make those connections because it's safe. And no one feels like, never ask for anything. That's another thing. Like, don't go up to somebody, hey, do you represent me? Like, no. But if you just engage people, like, for example, today, like, I don't know how many people are from the East Coast, but this is the Maryland state flag, right? And I've been wearing this. And Do you know how many people, just when I wear this on the street, will come up to me and be like, "Hey, you're from Maryland?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm born and raised in Baltimore." And it's just a conversation. When I've gone to industry events, like the ones that, sort of like this, where everyone's kind of spaced out, and I had this on, I've talked to people who are much further along in their career than I am, and they're like, "Are you from Maryland?" And I'm stunned by how many Marylanders are in Southern California. Jesus Christ, where are you from?
Silver Spring.
Yeah, there you go, DC area. Right, awesome. But that's not, you see what I'm getting at? So sometimes the most innocuous thing can lead to a connection. Like if you're wearing a hat of, let's say, a baseball team or a hockey. It could be anything. You'd be shocked at the things that you can connect with people with. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want, is the connection. You don't ask for anything. This is a town of transactional relationships, which I can't stand. But the truth is, if somebody's going to do something for you, you usually have to return it. But you don't start out that way. You wait till people, like she said, someone has to ask you for your work. When I was starting out, because I went to Boston University for grad school, and there's a lot of BU people out here, especially in animation. And because of that, that's how I got on the Thundercats show in 2011. Because one of the producers was a BU alum, and I met him, and I said, dude, whatever you can do for me. And I actually did ask. He said, all right, well, I can't do anything for you. We already staffed the show, but I'll just keep you in mind. Episode 24 of 26, I got the call. But it was because I had a relationship. And when I first met him, we didn't talk about that. I talked about all the cool stuff that he wrote back in the day that I loved. And it was genuine. Because he worked on the Starship Troopers animated series called Roughnecks. A lot of people haven't seen it. But it's if you like Starship Troopers, the Roughnecks animated series, the CGI, it's much better than the movies and all the other stuff they put out there, right? And he also did the Godzilla cartoon, he did Jackie Chan adventures, things I actually liked. And the Men in Black cartoon, which was awesome and underrated. And I said to him, I can't, and I started just talking to him. And he was just like, oh yeah, we wanted to do this and that. But I wasn't asking for anything at first. So it's really about, for agents and managers, you got to be where they are. That's when the networking sessions come in. Find out where they are and just kind of by osmosis figure out where people's heads are at. And that's where you start. I got my agent because of the ABC writing program. But that's because I got in. I was one of the 8 that got in. But before that, I couldn't even get anybody to throw a pile of crap on me. Like, get out of here. I'm not even wasting my crap on you. Get out of here. So that's how that works. So yeah. You're welcome. You got a question, sir?
Yeah. Previously you mentioned the blacklist. I don't know if you're familiar with Coverfly, where they kind of consolidate all your screenwriting accolades and fellowships and mainly it's like competition. They'll score you, so like screenwriter or lit reps and agents can kind of screen you ahead of time. But I was wondering if you feel like the screenwriting competitions are effective. Like I've placed in like a bunch. I've been a finalist. I've been semi-finalist in some big name stuff, but it's not quite. I don't know. Everyone's saying they want the diversity, but their roster's still 99% white dudes.
Yeah, they keep saying that.
How are we catching their eye?
It's just, I told you, this business, I just don't understand. It's like everybody's going on this talking, but nobody's doing a lot of action. And I'm like, what's his name? About that action, folks? What's the football player? Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch about that action. So all this talking, are you hiring black women or not? That's what I'm looking at them like. But Coverfly, I get emails from them. I would look and see who has been successful for. I have Inktipp. So even though I have CAA degree arts, no one sells my cookies better than me. So I'm still going to try to sell my smaller projects that I was writing before CAA came along. They get my big stuff. I have my Hallmark movies and my little small things or whatever. So I went on Inktipp. I put one of my movies up on there. I met a producer on there. And I have 2 projects that went out to Hallmark maybe a week or 2 ago. So it's there are places where you can find people that are looking for projects. So Inktipp was one. I'm not sure how Coverfly successful they are, but I would look and see what the success stories are. Yeah. I like Inktipp because they tell you such and such signed with this person, such and such optioned their story with this person. So look for the success stories, and then the things that you're getting finalists in now, whatever, those are your resume. You're building your resume. So once you do get to CAA, you're not a baby writer anymore. It's you walk in the door look, I got all this on my shoulder, I got this on my back. I've been building this for years, and so you get a lot more respect that way. Because if you just come in with one script or whatever, and they're just oh, this person's a baby writer, can they write another one? But if you already have those accolades behind you, it's kind of like in college when you get your masters and all these other things that you get, so you're still building up to your success. So once you get in that door, it's not going to close on you. You're going to stay in there.
Even like Roadmap Writers is a great resource where they have their success story. They've signed over, they've gotten over 200 writers signed. With,
Oh, did they?
But they like screen their writers and stuff like that, so we know that they're getting quality writers.
I maintain to this day that that's the best screenwriting for features contest in the world, because they're not asking you for anything. A lot of these places have abnormally high rates to, especially if you're, when I got out here, I was working at Barnes & Noble and GameStop. You know, I could not afford these $30, $40, and $50 script writing fees. But then there's a lot of them that don't charge you anything because they're legit. So I always kind of feel like if they're asking for money, then maybe not. You know, I would. That's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of paying for entry to this. With that being said, Austin Film Festival, historically, not so much lately, but historically, is one of the better script writing contests, because people do get a lot of attention. And of course, Sundance. You know, so like always remember there are established things out there, and a lot of these fly-by-night charging 30, 40, 50 bucks per submission, it's kind of just a money-making operation for the people, because a lot of the folks who own those companies are failed writers.
But I have a story about this one.
Do you really?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
So I told you I was in the Ron Howard program. I wrote a script called Taking the Throne that got me meetings with pretty much every studio in Hollywood. So over the past 2 years, I've met with pretty much people. Still read that script and they want to meet with me because of it. The pitch I'm doing on Tuesdays is because of that script. So I wanted to try something out. I'm always trying experiments. So I sent that script to Nichols, and it didn't place at all.
Wow.
The script that had me meetings to this day and getting me on to pitch a movie on Tuesday, Nichols, they were like, no. So I don't know. What do you say? It's just like
it's also subjective.
It is. It's subjective. You don't know who's reading what and what their life story is
and what that
they
day was like for them.
Yeah, that's true. So it's like it's the luck of the draw. It's kind of like playing the lottery a little bit in a lot of ways. So I like the programs where they get to meet me. Like I come from sales, so you get me in the room, I'm gonna sell you on me. And so that's why I like face to face. So the competitions are cool, and it's cool to add it to your resume. Like the first script I wrote, I was a finalist in Sundance. So I've used that for 20 years now. I still talk about it. I haven't been in finalist since then. But that's the one thing I have on my resume still.
Well, we're about to run out of time for real, and they're going to shut everything down. But I want to put up a couple more resources for you. So the writers, I think the 100th edition should be out by now. 2020. They still make that goddamn book. They're not, now it comes as a digital file.
Okay.
Big giant PDF. But the writer's market has everything in it, generally speaking. The TV Writer Podcast is one of the greatest resources that nobody knows about, because the guy who runs, I think his name is Graham something, he's a Canadian, he would find every kind of TV writer, from showrunner to baby writer, and just ask them about their journey. And the things that I learned from that also helped me out. Masterclass, that's blown up lately, because they just got Nas. And I was like, whoa, Nas. You know, wow. You know, but like every writer that Judy Blume is on there, for Christ's sake. But Masterclass is a fantastic resource for anybody who's a writer. I still, and Writer's Market, I still use Writer's Market just to see what's going on and who's new on the scene for like science fiction short stories. That's my thing, you know. Also, I just wanted to say these are examples of people who did their own thing. The Martian was something he wrote because he was a space nerd, like I am. I was a big space nerd, and he wrote it himself. Self-published it, then a bigger publishing company picked it up, and then one day Ridley Scott directed to save Matt Damon from space again. Because every time I see a space movie, they're getting Matt Damon. You know, I'm not. You know, 50 Shades of Grey obviously was a Twilight fan fiction that got flipped into some kind of sadomasochistic thing, but it struck a chord. See, again, it was very specific, but somehow became general and universal. And of course, I talk about Issa Rae. I always talk about her because her example is so important to me, because she did something, and I remember supporting her stuff back in the day, and I was like, wow, I'd love it if she blew up. And God, she became a mogul of her own.
I know. Me and her were on the boat together. We went on the boat together, like right before all this happened. She was still awkward with Black Girl. The next thing I knew, she was like making money. Got to get
no longer awkward.
Yeah, no longer awkward.
So So that's basically it. And because it's 7 o'clock, if anybody needs to go back downstairs before it ends. But feel free to keep in touch with us. I hope we got to answer all your questions. But you know, I'm glad, first of all, you're here. So give yourself a round of applause for showing up. You could have been anywhere.